Sir, unfortunately for most of us, what is decided by the highest judicial authority in our country is that the directive principles are not as important as fundamental rights. It is most unfortunate. I do not mean any criticism against any individual judge sitting. I mean criticism from the point of view of the principle adopted to decide the cases. The directive principles are not only the duties cast upon the state, they are a sort of rights available to the citizens as a whole in the country, to the society as a whole. We consider the right available to an individual and we do not consider the right available to so many individuals in the country. We are committing a mistake somewhere. They have decided that because directive principles are not justiciable, fundamental rights are more important, and when a law is made to implement the directive principles, it goes against the fundamental rights, it has to be struck down. That is most unfortunate. There is a decided case in which a Harijan student was admitted in a medical college. A law was made for that purpose. The case went to the High Court in Madras and it decided that equality before law is not available under that act because all students should be treated equal, and so the admission was cancelled. That was most unfortunate. It is a different thing that the judgment was reversed and so many other steps were taken, and we have now in our country students from scheduled castes and tribes getting admission to medical colleges on priority. It is all there, but that is a different thing. Only few days back in this house itself, I do not mean disrespect to the honorable members who pleaded the cause in the most beautiful, most effective manner. What have we decided? There was a law brought before this house which said that in order to protect the skull and brain of an individual, he should wear helmet. Then because of the prevailing religious and other social circumstances, certain citizens were given exemption from this. He said, if you do this, somebody will go to the court and get an injunction against this because there is discrimination between women in this country. What was the result? The result was that the Honorable Minister had to say that the ladies would be exempted. With respect to what my friend is asking us to do, I am one with him. I would be the happiest person if this is included in the chapter on fundamental rights. I would be the happiest person. But there are certain difficulties, and those difficulties are to be taken into account. My dear friend standing here said that unless you change some other provisions in the constitution, it is not going to be possible for you to implement this fundamental right. Supposing we are not including this in fundamental rights, but supposing we are trying to implement it. In Maharashtra, the Employment Guarantee Resolution was passed and then the law was passed. Now we are trying to see that this is included in the fundamental rights chapter. But there was difficulty in America when President Roosevelt under the New Deal made a law to see that those who were in service were not retrenched in the recession period. That law was challenged in the Supreme Court and that law was first struck down. When he came out openly and when he said, I peg the benches, that peg the benches phrase changed the entire situation and a different judgment was given and law was again declared as not ultra virus of the constitution. That is the position there. Now if you make a change of this kind, if you pass a law that is not going to help us, it may somehow or the other create so many difficulties. We have Article 32 in our constitution. What does Article 32 and also Article 26 provide? Article 32 provides the right to an individual to go to the Supreme Court in order to enforce the fundamental rights made available to the citizens. In the Fundamental Rights chapter, Article 32 is also there. I do not mean that the people should misinterpret me when I say that Article 32 creates difficulty and that Article 32 should not be there. I do not mean that Article 32 would be necessary. Difficulty arises as Article 32 is there and a fundamental right is made available to the citizen, that citizen can directly go to the Supreme Court. Article 32 says that writ can be issued against the government. There is the right available to the citizen in the fundamental rights. Article 32 is there and Article 226, which is not treated as a part of the fundamental rights chapter, also gives the same kind of right to citizen in the High Court as given by the fundamental rights. Mr. Chairman, sir, a discussion has been held today on a very important subject. All the honorable members who have taken part in this discussion have given some very good suggestions. I am grateful and thank them from it. You know how much awakened the people have become today. No one had made any efforts in this direction 4 or 5 years ago. First of all, it was our late Prime Minister of India who drew the attention of the people towards it. This problem is not confined to India alone, but is a matter of concern for the entire world. Today, the foreign countries also feel that a heavy price will have to be paid for the development that has been made. To fight against nature is suicidal, and you all know, and the foreign countries are also saying that if there had been lesser development and the environment had remained unaffected, that might have been better. The health standard of the people is declining these days. This would not have happened otherwise. It is essential that every individual in every country should enjoy good health. However, the level of environmental pollution is somewhat lesser here than in other countries. There are 3 major problems facing our country today. The first is that of floods, the second is of drought, and the third is of pollution. You may be aware that deforestation is the main reason underlying the problems of floods and drought. If the mountains are denuded of forests, there is no obstruction to the flow of water downwards and fast eroding soil along with it. In this manner, the rivers get flooded in our country. About 4 crore hectares of land is flooded. On an average, 1 crore hectares of land is flooded every year. In case of very heavy floods, 4 crore hectares of land may be flooded. However, on an average, 1 crore hectares of land is affected by floods every year. The main reason underlying drought is the lack of greenery. You will notice that Gujarat, Rajasthan, and several other states are often hit by drought. The main reason is that these areas are denuded of forests. Trees are felled. A law has been enacted in this regard, but there are some shortcomings in it. The honorable members have rightly pointed out that stringent punishment can be awarded under this law, and we must follow it vigorously. We would be considering this law soon and would make necessary amendments in it so that this law becomes as effective as the pollution laws. I would state certain things later on. We want that similar stringent law should be framed about felling of trees also. Along with this, I think that unless people's cooperation is there and until it takes the form of a people's movement, it will not yield the desirable results. I respect the opinions of the honorable members and feel that their feelings are very good and they have offered some very good suggestions. I would cite an example of the golden times to emphasize the importance, recognition, and respect that our ancient sages gave to the forests. An honorable member from Rajasthan was speaking here. I will tell you a story from Rajasthan which is of 250 years old. According to this old story, the Maharaja of Jodhpur had once ordered the felling of trees for constructing a palace. In those days, lime was used for the construction of buildings, but it was to be seasoned before it could be used, and wood was required for that purpose. When the king ordered the felling of trees, the servant replied that it would be difficult to find trees because there had been continuous famine for the past 4 or 5 years. However, there are trees in the villages where the Vishnoi community is living, but they do not fell trees. It is against their religion because trees as well as human beings both have life in them, and as such there is no difference between the two. As soon as you cut a tree and squeeze it a little, a fluid comes out. The fluid is similar to human blood. Therefore, it is a religious.